And now we have the addition of the settlement of copyright violation claim. Mr. Ed Blair will address the board regarding that issue.
Good afternoon. Back last October, an English teacher in one of our middle schools did what teachers do on the school website. They post homework assignments, and being an English teacher, she posted a copy of a poem called The Dash by someone called Linda Ellis. And the manner of that posting at least constituted a technical copyright violation, even though it was an innocent posting and no money was made for it. Well, as sometimes happens these days, people checked the web and discovered that and asserted a claim against the school system for that copyright violation. And we've spent a good bit of time talking with this entity called Linda's Lyrics, someone named John Jolin, and we've also checked with our insurance carrier. Insurance does not cover this type of claim. It's a copyright claim. And we've considered, it's a technical violation. It is there. It's not the kind of thing we would want to litigate. So we've gone back and forth a good bit and come to an agreement that I can recommend to you, and Dr. Stone has approved. And we've agreed to pay this author $1,625 for this violation. So I've got, they have signed the settlement agreement. I do recommend it to you under these circumstances, and would ask that you approve the settlement and direct the chairman to execute on behalf of the school system, the teacher involved, the school, and anyone else involved.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve the settlement of this copyright violation claim as Mr. Blair has presented it?
It's a bitter pill, I know.
I did have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think we have, I'll make a motion so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we approve the copyright violation claim in the amount of $1,625 as presented by Mr. Blair.
Is there a second? Need a second to just.
This is the first we've heard about it, I think. I know quite.
Yes, this arose a couple weeks ago.
So we was unaware of any of this.
Is there a second?
Okay, I'll second.
Is it necessary that a decision be made right this minute?
Yeah, isn't
Well, we're to the question and answer point now, so is.
That was my question. Is this of any time sensitivity?
Yes, it is. That is part of the basis of the settlement, that it be resolved quickly. And we've involved a copyright lawyer from Raleigh in this process, and received advice because that copyright's kind of out of my area. But you've got to consider what's the alternative settlement, and of course that's litigation in federal court. That could be in North Carolina, or it could even be in Georgia. And we don't have coverage. There are cost implications. There's a violation. So really the real issue is the amount of damages. In copyright damages, I understand, you don't necessarily measure that by the cost of the, let's just say you paid to use the poem. That's not how it's typically measured. Now, I think they wanted a good bit more, all right? I think we are a sympathetic defendant if we are a defendant. So it's kind of hard to pin down a real figure, but I believe this is appropriate. I think you've got to do a cost-benefit analysis, particularly when there is liability.
In your conversations with Dr. Stone, did he share anything about educating our staff?
Yes. Oh,
I
yeah.
was gonna
Yeah,
ask that.
yeah, and
That was
is-
my next
that's-
question, too.
If there's a bright side, this reminds us and enables us to do some education of our folks, and we need to do that. And I've even actually had some conversations with the School Boards Association about including in that in some of our the presentations for either the school boards or attorneys or whatever. I think that would be helpful.
Did you say this does include protection for the school system, the school, and the teacher involved?
It does, yes.
So all parties, once this is solved, it's solved?
Yes, we've included everybody.
Okay.
Okay, will you explain one more time about the discovery?
How it was discovered?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a computer person. And I hate to use loaded terms, but there's something called trolling, in which people go on the net and they find violations and then assert claims. I don't know how that works. I can't say this is what they did, but there's some indication that this may have happened before. Now, be that as it may, if you discover a violation and it's a violation, well then, what is the remedy?
Okay, so somebody discovered it and then contacted the poet?
This Mr. Jolin from Linda's Lyrics in Marietta, Georgia, sent an email to the school and to folks in the administration and made a demand.
Let me say on behalf of myself, that the only apprehension I have, and I'm sure you've done due diligence, I believe that. The only apprehension I had initially was that for myself, this is the first time I'd ever heard of the matter.
Well, the initial claim was brought in, let's see, I don't think if it was May or not. My first date in my file, I think it came in May 27, when the email came into the school system.
Well, I was going to say, one of the concerns I have is if we were not to settle for this amount would be, number one, the cost of litigation, and number two, we don't have any idea. I don't know if this is just a judge that would decide this or a jury, but what if they decided to give them $20,000 or something like? I mean, we would have no control over that.
Well, we'd be heard, and the other side would have its burden of proof. But apparently, from the attorney we've spoken with, Rob Monath in Raleigh, that it can be kind of hard to pin down. As he says, we're sympathetic, that we didn't use this in our business, we didn't make money off of it. It was teacher given a homework assignment of all things. I mean, if I was an author, I'd be kind of proud of our police, but that's not how it works. So there is a violation, and we owe something for it. We could go to federal court and find out what that is. Sometimes you win and you lose. So it's a practical cost-benefit analysis that we've done in assessing this, and that's the basis of that and what we're hearing from Mr. Mona and.
Okay, I agree with what Dottie said, and taking the hit because of what could happen in the future. But the person who owns the copyright didn't discover it, is that correct? Like a separate third party who
those
does
kind of
this for a
things
living?
can be delegated, and the name of this organization is Linda's Lyrics, LLC, and owned by the author, the reason, maybe the primary reason I guess that is formed to manage that copyright and police it and negotiate and that type of thing. But we're insisting that the release be signed, and it has been signed and notarized by the author herself.
I understand why we would have to pay that. That was actually, well, ignorance is don't count in the law, but one of you brought it up anyway about making sure that the staff is educated on this, because could occur again.
Yes.
And, I mean,
And
where it fall, I'm sure there's no doubt about it,
but it was innocent fault. It was
it
not-
was
it
an
not-
innocent fault.
Absolutely. So,
It was well-meaning,
Yeah.
not exploitive
yeah.
by any intention.
Notwithstanding the staff being educated, is there anyone in technology or possibly, and maybe you may not have the answer to this, maybe Dr. Johnson or Dr. Burns, is there anyone possibly, or is there anyone already looked across the board at what else is out there to see if we're in violation right now in any other areas?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
First of all, I assume that we do this generally anyway. And you know, you have a lot of employees, a lot of folks, and you know, the posting was on the school website, but it was like a link to a personal website. So the mechanics of it are not exactly complex, but not exactly straightforward either. So.
I was just trying to gauge if there's any other potential liabilities that are presently out there.
That may be. Hope not.
Well, I'm kind of, you know, I know Tim indicated that this is the first he'd heard of it. I think it's probably the first that any of us on the board had heard about this issue. But under the circumstances, as several have mentioned, you know, this is probably a small amount compared to what it could be, and probably a good lesson learned as we instruct employees and teachers and others to be diligent in making sure this doesn't occur again. So,
Well, I will
any
say
other
to the board that there is a confidentiality provision in the agreement, and the reason I can discuss it with you now in public is that we're in an open meeting, and it's required that the board approve this settlement and know what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
And it also is a public document itself.
Any other questions or comments? If there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Blair.